You are Greg.
I am Greg
You do run sound for.
for Earl Jam.
That's fantastic. And we are here
Yeah,
in an empty arena, which is amazing to me.
it's pretty great. It's pretty great they let us in here.
Yeah, I love doing these on the off days or pre-pro because I have nothing bugging me. And I chose the worst spot ever to do any of these interviews because there's always something going on during show when you always have
Yeah,
to stop
yeah, and
for something.
yeah, especially this shows. There's a lot of moving parts, and everything's very busy. So yeah, this is great that we can
So
do this.
yesterday I came into some B-roll. That was day
hmm
one
hmm
of the whole tour.
Yep.
How long's your tour?
Oh, this one's only 3 weeks.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they like to do. They don't like to be out for that long
Okay.
at a time. So we tend to do a lot of these little 3-4 week runs, kind of spread out over the year.
Um, I want to get kind of into your past, but I'm curious for a day one a arena tour.
hmm
What are the things that are like on your hit list and checklist that you're making sure for the rest of the tour that go well? Is there anything that you're really focused on for this one
Um,
that will set the tone for the rest of it?
Yeah, one of the things I do, the band guys get a video every night of the show with my audio on it. So I want to make sure that feed is good
Mm.
and that sounds good for them. Um, and also in Nashville, and we'll do this usually once a leg, Sirius XM, because they have a channel, Pearl Jam channel on Sirius XM. So they'll do a live broadcast of a show, and they'll just take my mix and and do it. So I'm trying to make sure that send
Yeah.
that feed. I've got a separate group that goes out, and I do a little bit more mastering with some plugins. But I make sure that's right. And then the rest of it is, I mean, we've been out all year, so it's pretty much dialed in, and the PA's dialed in. I mean, it took us, I think, 10 minutes to tune the PA, just because my system engineer Andrew's great. We've been in this room before, um, and it's the same exact PA every day. So it's kind of cut
A
and
known
paste.
variable.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and K1 is just so good. There's not, the consistency from arena to arena is
Yeah.
just really great, and so it kind of takes the room out of it in a lot of ways. So it's really nice.
All right, we're gonna hit rebind. We're gonna go all the way to the beginning.
Oh,
Very
gosh.
beginning. Where is Greg
Okay,
Nelson originally from?
so Greg Nelson is from Anaheim, California.
Okay. Yay,
Um,
Nam.
yes, I went to my first NAM in 1987. I'm stoked. I was just graduate. I was in high school, and a friend of a friend's dad was somebody, I can't remember even what it was, but I got a badge. And I just wanted to walk around and look at rock stars. You know
In
what I mean?
'87?
Yeah.
That was the year I was born,
Oh, no
Greg.
shit. I'm old. I'm fucking old. That's the year I graduated high school. Yeah, I'm old. I was going to be a singer in
Okay.
a rock band. That was my goal in life. Um, so I went to Fullerton Junior College. They had a great music program there, and they had a studio recording class. Great little studio recording class there. So I took that because when I figured when I get into the studio, I want to make sure that I know what's going on, so I could get the best vocal performance. So I took that class, and it just all made sense to me, like
Hmm.
immediately. It was just I just took to it, and it was just like, oh, this is great. And then in the course of the next year or so, I realized I wasn't a very good singer. And because when you get to college, you start hanging out with other people like, oh, fuck, that guy's really good.
Yeah.
I'm not. So,
It's like musicians that go to Nashville to be like, "Oh,
yeah,
wow, I am not that the server's better than me."
yeah. It was exactly that. So I was like, okay, well, that's not going to work. But I really enjoyed doing this. So all my friends were in bands. And so they were like, hey, you're taking a recording class. You can mix, right? You want to mix our band at the club? So I started doing that in the late 80s, early 90s, in like Orange County club scene, a lot of punk bands and stuff like that. And then even in the LA, the last sort of dying breath of, hair metal there, like, 90 at, all those Hollywood clubs. That's kind of how I started. Um, and I was doing that. God, I remember the first show I ever mixed was so bad. I had the bass player's mom screaming at me because it sounded so bad. It was awful. It was just
Was it
like,
actually bad?
oh, it was terrible. It was awful. I had no idea what I was doing. But that was the thing. Like that was the thing. You just like, the whole fake it till you make it
Yeah.
is 100% true.
Yeah.
And there were no schools. There was no
Yeah.
Full Sail or anything like back then for live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just kind of had to just bullshit my way into clubs and mixing. And that's how I started working at a club in Long Beach called Bogart's, a little punk rock club. And I just started working there for free. I just told the sound guy, hey, you want anything to help? Pretty soon I was doing everything and he was back at the bar getting paid, having a drink. But I was, mixing and miking up bands. And then through him, I got a job at a place, a rehearsal studio called Leeds in Hollywood, or Burbank, actually. But, and so that was really great because I would stay, because I had the keys and I could lock up whenever I wanted. So I would stay until the wee hours of the morning just learning stuff. Like they had a 3K, which at the time was like, oh my God, this is a fully parametric EQ. Whoa, this is cool. And just taught myself and learned and like made frequencies feedback and learned all my, learned
Yeah.
what frequencies were what and stuff like that. And so that was really, really instrumental in my young life and just going for it. Just just like, hey man, I'll mix your band for free, just to get experience. And I was really lucky and I mixed a lot of great bands back in the day. But through connections and stuff like that, I got a job at a small sound company. A guy named Greg Dean had a company. At the time, it was called No Show Audio. And later he changed it to Industrial. But he gave me a shot, started working. Through him, I got a job with a sound company called Schubert. And I worked for them for a number of years. And through them, that's when I met, like I worked with 311 and Cypress Hill doing monitors. I was doing monitors for like the first 5 or 6 years. I didn't even touch a front of house console, which is a great thing. Any aspiring front of house engineer, I'll tell them go mix monitors for a few years first, and you'll learn so much about frequencies and sound and how it relates to everything else, and then go back and mix front of house. But anyway, it taught me a lot. But that was great.
Love that.
But
Well,
yeah,
especially also in those days with the wedges too. Like you
oh
have
yeah,
to like
oh yeah, yeah. You have
you,
to.
you couldn't see it. You actually have to know where
Yeah, oh
that,
yeah. I didn't have smart. There was none of that.
what does
Yeah,
3K really sound
yeah.
like?
You had to just make it feedback and learn
Yeah. The only other
through
one I've heard
pain.
too as well with that is that if you really want to learn EQs, do spoken word.
Yeah,
That one will also teach you
yeah,
a lot about
yeah.
frequencies as well.
Well, that was like working for the sound company when you start doing corporates. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And that teaches you a lot.
yeah.
That's stuff. Some of that stuff's hard.
Yeah.
Especially back then, we didn't. Uh, you know, delaying speaker. Like I didn't even know delaying your subs. The PA was a thing until I was already, mixing for 5 or 6 years
Yeah.
because people just wasn't done that much back in the early 90s.
For the people who don't know and the newer people, explain a little bit what that means and why you'd want to delay the subs to the
Oh,
mids.
well, just you've got your speakers up here in the air, emitting frequencies. You have your subs down here doing the same frequencies. If they're not in time, you're going to get phasing issues. You're going to get big holes. You're going to get nodes. You're going to get all this kind of stuff. And by lining them up, you can erase all that and have a nice, happy, full sound. but I didn't know that was a thing
Yeah.
when I started, you know.
Yeah.
But and I was working for a smaller sound company, whatever. But we did. You learn.
Yeah.
I kind of learned by doing. You know.
So monitors to front of house.
hmm
That's when you started to work with
Um,
bigger
yeah.
bands.
So my kind of big break or whatever you can call it. So I was working with 311 doing monitors in 96, 97, 97, and a band called Incubus opening up. And their manager was an acquaintance of mine, and he was like, "Hey, can you mix front of house for them so I don't have to pay a guy?" So sure. So I went out and mixed front of house for them on that tour. And at the end of that tour, they were like, "Hey, we're going to keep going. You want to come with us?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so, right after that tour, hop in a van with them, and we, toured the country in 97, 98 on their first record. And so as they kind of blew up through 99 and 2000 and stuff like that, I kind of rode that with them. And it was really great. And it was really great of them and their management to let me, because one of the first things usually when a band starts getting big is they get the big shot front of house guy, and they replace all the crew. You know what I mean, with more experienced, seasoned people, which sometimes you kind of need to,
Yeah.
um, because if somebody doesn't have the experience once you jump into arenas. But I had already been working for a sound company for years doing arenas, either as a systems tech or as a monitor engineer. So I kind of knew. I didn't have a lot of mixing experience, but I knew what to do. Um, and so that was really helpful when I started mixing, when we jumped up to arenas and stuff like that. Plus, we had done some opening act stuff. Um, God, another guy I can't. I'm jumping around a lot.
No,
My
no, no,
head's,
you're
my
great.
brain's.
No, this is great.
When in '99 we opened up for Black Sabbath, and that was one of my first big arena tours, and Greg Price was mixing Sabbath, and he was so kind and so nice, and like just helped me pick up my console, and was like, oh, oh, you sounds great, you're doing a great job, blah blah blah, all this kind of stuff, and that was really helpful. So I kind of take that, and now when I'm always make sure that I'm
Yeah.
giving positive affirmation to younger engineers that open for us, and like Greg didn't, he let me have the full PA. There was no, which was very common back in those days for engineers to squash
Oh
the
yeah, or
opening
give you
bands.
that much of the.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, but no, he was great, and so yeah, and so I've kind of taken that on. And there's a lot of people that sort of helped me when I was young, and I really appreciate all of it.
What's that phrase like? Be nice to them on the way up
Oh God,
because they'll remember
yes.
you on the way down.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've taken that to heart, and it's really helped me.
Yeah.
Always treat your opening acts with respect and good, and make sure they're happy, because they might be your boss tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's true. Like so I went, I did a tour with Cypress Hill, and 311 was our opening act. And then the 311 guys loved me, so they took me out. I was working for 311, and then the same thing. Incubus was the opening act, and I stemmed it, and then they blew up. So I mean, it's absolutely true. My career is based on being nice to the opening bands.
What was it like? I mean, you were with Incubus in the prime right when it was going up,
Yeah,
which is so cool because I'm
yeah.
such a fanboy of Incubus and growing up in that time period as well. What was it like being with the band that was launching
Oh,
during
it
that
was so
time?
much fun. It was so much fun. Um, it was just great, because, just going through all the steps and watching them, like, because I mean, when I was with them, they were still living. Some of them were still living at home. You know what I mean? And it was just so much fun. Just the crowd's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and more production and this and that, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun ride. And again, I'm so happy that I wasn't fired. Got to do that with them.
Have you've been in the industry for a little bit?
Yeah,
In 6 days it'll be a week, right?
roughly, yeah, roughly.
Is there, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of bands come and go.
hmm
Um, is there anything that you've seen um, as common with bands that have made it? That there's something that they have that other bands don't? Do you think it's kind of chance? Do you think is there some sort of
Um,
commonality between that in terms of
well,
bands?
I mean, talent, obviously, but Um, bands that are truly friends
Hmm.
and can keep that friendship going um, tend to, I feel, do the best and have the most longevity, um, regardless of what career path they're going like that. But if they've got a good head on their shoulders, if they don't let their egos go too crazy, because it's easy. I mean, when you have everyone around you telling you how great you are,
Yeah.
it's easy for that to become an issue, especially with younger bands. But no, but I find the guys that are grounded, that are have a tight friendship and can keep that together, those are the bands that last.
I was just with the Silverstein guys, and I was talking with their guitar player. And they've been around for 25 years, and I was asking the same question. They said almost the same exact thing. It's because it's kind of a marriage, really, in a way. And how
Absolutely,
can
it
you
is.
cater to other people and
Yeah.
serve other people in the band, also in the tech as well, which is fantastic. Because we are talking about this last night, and what's the youngest person? How long have they been with this band?
Oh, like 10 years, something
And
like
you've been
that,
with them
maybe. I've
for,
been with them for 20,
and
almost
almost
21.
everybody's got a tenure
Yeah.
here, and
Well,
that's
this band is incredibly loyal to their people, and they treat their people better than 99% of the bands out
so.
there.
Walk me through 20 years ago how you got connected with
So,
these guys.
their engineer at the time was doing another tour, and they did this thing called Vote for Change in 2004.
Okay.
And it was like a little 2.5 week run or whatever, and they just needed someone to fill in. So I was their tour manager at the time was an acquaintance of mine. We kind of ran in the same sort of crowd in Long Beach, Orange County. And so I was at a birthday party, and someone said, "Oh yeah, somebody said they're looking for a front of house guy." I'm like, "Well, me." He's like, oh yeah, okay, that's a good idea." And then so he asked around, you know, so they were a rat account at the time, and so he asked, Dave Rat, "Hey, this guy, do you know him?" Dave's like, "Oh, he's great. Yeah, you should totally hire him." And that was it. I got hired. Um, and so I did that tour, and I didn't think I would ever mix them again. It was like, that was kind of it. And their guy who was mixing at the time, Brett, he decided that he just wanted to focus on mixing the bootlegs and mixing all that kind of stuff. He didn't really want to be out here in a shitty sounding arena anymore. Which, we don't blame him. So they offered me the job, and that was in 2005. And so, yeah, I was thrilled to death, and that's kind of, yeah, that's how I got it.
Do you remember the console you were on?
When I started, it was XL4. Yeah,
Come a long ways from a
yeah,
XL4, man.
yeah. XL4 and a couple racks of stuff, and then I went PM1D, and I was on that for a while because we started getting, they like to add inputs, and they like every time they write a record, there's a song that adds just a couple more inputs, and since we don't know when they're going to play that song, because the set list is different every night, and they just grab it, and then it might even be an audible. We have to keep those inputs, so the list is just getting longer and longer and longer. Like when I started in 2004, I think we were 48 or 49 inputs, and now we're like in the 90s somewhere. I think something like that. Yeah,
What? Okay.
low 80s. But yeah, it's because it's just like, I've got, there's a cowbell mic for this one song that they might do, but we need that cowbell mic. It's important, so we have to keep. I've got an input for it. We have to keep it in.
Is there any equipment that you still have using from that time?
God, no, no. Well, yeah. Uh, these Alan Smart C2s.
Okay.
Um, yeah, those have kind of been there forever and ever and ever. Some of the stuff I've replaced with plugins, because plugins don't have insert issues. I had an insert issue last night. I had something with my tom group. I just have to figure out what happened. I haven't figured it out yet. But I had to pop it out and just kind of redo it on there. But
So the age-old question of analog or digital, do you feel like you notice much of a
no, yeah, I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but no, I don't. I I mean, there is something. I mean, because I've got my entire sort of mastering chain in my thing is all analog. Um, so there is something to be said for that. But I don't think like if I had an XL4 here instead of this, I don't think my mix would be that much better. Um, I think all of the mainstream digital consoles today sound great. It's all just about what you're comfortable with as a workflow and what you like to do. But I don't like Avid and Yamaha and all the. I think all the desks sound great. Digico for me, um, I get the best results on a Digico board. I like the workflow. I can mix anything on it almost blindfolded. Um, I will probably never mix on another console
wow,
until the day I die.
wow.
Because I've tried other consoles and it's just, the workflow a lot of it just makes sense to me. And it's just like I'm not comfortable. Plus I'm old and I'm set in my ways. And um, but I really these desks for me, and knock on wood, they're reliable. Um, and it's just I get a better mix on a Digico desk than I do, because I was using Avid for a little while and I've messed around with the newer Yamaha desks and all that, but it's just, and it's all personal taste. I don't think there's anything wrong
Yeah,
with anybody choosing with it. And a lot of the guys that, mix analog and, their shows sound great too, but I think it's more to do with the engineer than it is the desk,
yeah.
or the gear of any kind.
I get that question a lot. It's a few top questions I get, but one of the top questions I get is like, what's the best console out there? And it's like, you know what? There's a lot of great
They're all
consoles
good.
out there, and they all sound really, really good. But I will say, I'm doing this almost 2 years now. I've kind of noticed a trend between people and consoles.
Oh yeah.
I've noticed that if you're really big into macros, and that's really important to you, a lot of people tend to lean
Right.
more towards Digico.
Yeah.
If you're really big into if waves is a really important thing for
Hmm.
you, I've noticed a lot of people lean towards more the Avid
Oh,
for
interesting.
it.
Okay.
Uh, if um, if what's the other one? If you are an analog guy and you like that analog feel for it, I've seen people more lean towards the Yamaha
Yep. I agree with
and the
that.
Rivage
Yeah.
with that. And I've noticed that if you're really big into if you're big into the Pro Series and you're big into that and you like that, a lot of people over 96 gauge you're every day. I've seen people lean towards the HD
Right.
96. I've
Right.
known people if you like to be different, like a little bit of feel or have a studio background, people like the SSL.
That's yeah.
I will say the number one console I have seen owned by bands and engineers is the Allen and Heath.
Yeah.
So there's been so many things. Like there's great. And another question I get is like, what's the word? Not the most consistent, but what's the sturdiest console? What's the most reliable console? It's like,
Right.
well, probably analog, maybe, because honestly, they're all computers at the end
Well,
of the
but I
day.
mean, I have to say, I've had more um, XL4s and Heritages crash on me because of their little old
Yeah,
onboard computer
yeah,
or power supply issues and stuff like that. I've had more of those happen back in the old analog days than I have had consoles crash on me in the digital era.
so
Um, but everything breaks.
sure,
Um, some consoles are more reliable than others because maybe their R&D has been a little bit better and they didn't put them out, maybe later. I don't know,
yeah,
but they all break.
yeah,
They're all going to break, and so you just have to kind of just know that and move on. Like, I mean, we have a spare desk we carry because we're all on Digico and we're all on the same. We all share uh, the same racks. Um, so we have a spare console a spare SD5 that can just go anywhere if it needs to, if
yeah,
something breaks or whatever.
yeah.
But I've had this console. We were doing a live broadcast on Sirius at the Apollo a couple years ago, and right in the middle of the show, my desk just bricked, just bricked, and it quit, and it was 8 minutes of dead air live.
That's a
long,
lifetime.
so long. But the great thing about it is, we figured out what it was and why it took so long to reboot and all that other stuff, and then we took, okay, that will never happen again. You know what I mean? But stuff breaks,
Yeah.
and it just is. They all break.
I really do try to encourage people to try different consoles
Oh
as
yeah,
well, because there's different nuances. Like when you turn that compression ratio, or you
oh
turn the
yeah.
knobs,
Oh, they're
each
all
one's going to
EQs are very
be,
different, and yeah,
you turn the exact same way each one, it's going to be just a little bit
yeah, 100%.
different with it. Did you try a few other consoles before you landed on this one? What was the
Oh yeah, I
what was
mean,
your process of?
uh, well, like I said, like I was, PM1D, and then I was on Venue forever.
Hmm.
I was early adapter to that console because we opened in 2006. We opened up for Tom Petty, and Scoville was there, and he was mixing on it. I was on a 1D at the time, and he was like, "Hey, come check it out." Da, 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 da. And I was like, "Oh, this is cool. And plugins? Oh, I can do plugins. Oh, that's great." And so literally in the middle of a tour, I switched. Um, I had so we went through San Francisco. We had 3 nights in San Francisco, and so Avid, they brought a desk down, and so I set it up next to mine. And so during the day, when the second and third show days in the morning, I would come in and I would play back tracks, and I just got a mix up, and I was like, "Oh, this thing's great. Yeah, we're gonna keep it." And I sent the 1D back, and then the next show we did up in Seattle. Actually, I was on the
In the
venue.
middle of a tour.
Yeah,
Man,
yeah,
people don't even switch mics in the middle of a tour. You just did a whole console.
yeah.
That is
I
brave.
did that even, and then when the SD5 came out, I switched to that because it was 96K, and it there's a noticeable difference uh, between 48 and 96K in an arena. Like it's kind of night and day. So I switched to that. Was on that for a while when Avid came out with the SXL. I was still had a good rapport with a lot of people there, and so I was excited. So I mixed that for a couple years, and then I just found I kind of missed the Digico. I really wasn't having that as much fun on that Avid desk, and so in the middle of a tour, I switched back to an SD5. I did the same kind of thing. We were in London. A Digico bring down a console. I was able to get my mix back up in a couple days, and then for the next show, I just kept on the SD5.
From a band with Pro Jam that's been around for how long have they been around? Over 20 years.
Oh, 30, 31, 34 years, I think, maybe 34, 35. 91 they started.
There's been so many advancements into technology
Mm-hmm.
since then, especially in the studio side. Um, how much of this mix are you trying to pay tribute to the older sound, and how much of it are you kind of bringing it into the new age, if that makes sense? Are you trying to replicate that album, or are you just trying to make the best live
That's a good
version
question,
of it?
and I have opinions
I want to hear
on this. I have opinions. They're maybe not popular.
them.
So I am not trying to recreate the album.
Okay.
I am.
A lot of people try to do that.
A lot of people try and do that,
Yeah.
and that's fine if that's what the mandate from the band is. Then absolutely you should be trying to do that. But what I'm trying to do is just get their performance out to the crowd. What they're doing there live on stage, I'm trying to get that, represented that to the audience. And they may not be doing exactly what the record is. Those are different amps I recorded the record with. It's a different drum kit. It's a different everything. So it's not necessarily going to sound like the record. Bands that use the same gear live and in the studio, that's a whole other thing too. But I'm trying to create a sort of an in the moment, raw experience every night for people. And if you're trying to recreate the record, and like especially nowadays, records are recorded to be as loud as they possibly can, which means you're squishing and bringing up and squishing and bringing up. Like the snare sounds on records from the 90s versus what a snare sounds like today are drastically different.
Yeah.
It's barely even the same thing.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not trying to sort of recreate that. You know, there are.
Why do you think that is?
It's just. I mean, you know, they sound different from how they did in the '60s and '70s too. It's
Sure.
just. It's
Do you think
just.
it's fad? Do you think it's just
It is. Yeah. It's. I
yeah,
think it's fad. I think it's just. You know, the way things are going. I think the way people listen to music now is different. It's all on their phone
yeah.
or on an iPod. Even that's dated. I'm old. Um, or their computer or whatever it
There
is.
is
They're
an
not.
iPod over
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Oh, I've got one. I know. That's why I'm old. You know, they're not like in the '80s and '90s. Everybody had their, you know, super hi-fi headphones, or they're sitting there and, you know, or even, you know, in their stereos, stuff like that. People don't do that anymore. They're listening to it on a JBL boombox thing, you know. So the way that music sounds is kind of related to the listening experience, I feel. So trying to recreate that in a live environment, you tend to lose dynamics.
Hmm.
And I think dynamics are incredibly important in a live show. There should be moments where the crowd has to shut up to hear the show. And then there should be moments where you're just peeling their face off. Um, and that sort of ride is what I think makes live shows great. I think they can tend to be a little bit boring if the mix is just this static thing in a box and there's no dynamics to it. Um, and that's another thing, getting over reliant on plugins and again trying to reproduce what you're doing in a studio, which is what you want on a record, or what they want these days on a record. They don't want dynamics, they want it to be here so it's loud. So yeah, so
So, with you talked about audio files and going to streaming and stuff. Do you pay much thought into? We're talking about this a little bit yesterday, but when I did this interview with Kyle with Creed, he was talking about how one of the people that were in the audience had more followers
oh
than the band on social media.
yeah,
So he
that's
tries
crazy.
to make in his mind, like, how does it also sound on the phone? Because objectively, that person in the audience may
Right,
have more reach than the band. So it needs to sound good for everybody where they're at, everywhere they're at, but also even down to a phone
right.
for that. Do you
I
put,
try
do you
not
do
to
much thought
try not to
into
think about
that
the phone.
or
I'm more worried about what it sounds like in the room right now. So but I think coverage is incredibly important, and it always has been, especially with this band. Their fans are rabid, and they all have opinions, and they all want to hear every note that everyone's playing, no matter where you're sitting.
well, you got some
So
obsessed fans. Like one guy last night told me, he's like, "Oh, I've been to 90 shows."
yeah,
Like
oh yeah, oh
that's
no,
a
yeah, God bless them, I love them. But so you know, I've done a lot. I have a lot of PA, more than probably a lot of other people would bring in here, simply for the coverage, not necessarily the volume. But I want to make sure that you know, every seat, that seat up there in the nosebleeds, has the same sort of trace that I'm getting here, and so we all have the same experience.
I loved how one of the things you mentioned that said most people neglect is the house
Oh
left
God, yeah,
over there.
that's where the band guests are.
I
Band guests always go in these seats, right? The first couple sections in the lower bowl, and making sure that over there especially sounds as good as it does here
yeah,
is incredibly important, because you want, you know, the band's friends to come back and say it sounded amazing. You know what I mean? That's better than any review, you know.
yeah.
So yeah, I've always been a big fan, you know, proponent of just coverage, like more PA, as much PA as they'll let me hang, just because, again, not volume. It's not a loud show, but it's just making sure I have the coverage everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's another great thing about L Acoustics in K1, is that it can do it. It can, every seat in the house sounds as close, not identical, of course, because you're dealing with physics and acoustics and everything else, but as close as we possibly can to how it sounds right here.
It was being here last night. This was one of my favorite shows I've
Oh, that's
been
nice.
to. It was a great sonic experience. It was the merch here is amazing. The fans are amazing, and even just walking through with a camera. And I'll say this that sorry, but having a camera brings the worst out of people.
Oh,
There's
sure.
always like the worst dudes, the cockiest girls, that would like pull me and try to get the camera. But everybody here was so polite and they were
Yeah.
moving out of the way and everybody was having a great time. You saw fans from young kids to old adults, even as old as you, some of them
Yeah.
were.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was, and I think that really, one of the things that set the tone for that, at least in my opinion, was the band and also you told me that there wasn't any tracks. There's not really much of a click, and
No.
the way that this is set up is really a cool experience for everybody, and also with the dynamics
Hmm.
as well. And there's nothing wrong with a rock show and having just straight sound. That's cool once in a while, but this was so cool to be able to see that, and you can really see that translating it to the band, them having really a lot of fun. And I
Yeah.
feel like this, I do a lot of these, and I feel like that's kind of lost. And it's the same thing. Nothing against people who do the playback and the tracks and the time code,
Right.
everything synced, and I get that's all important. But I think there's something to be said about um, being able to go there and have freedom to have fun, and that the set list was it different every day?
Yeah.
You said
Yeah.
that's
It's
awesome.
great. It's create, and again, it's and these guys are all about it too. You're just trying to create a moment in time where everybody is here and kind of sharing the same experience, and they want that experience to be not different
Yeah.
every show. It's for them too, because they get bored. The band gets, you're playing the same song for 30 years. It's got to get boring after a time. But yeah, they change it up. It's different. Ed has so much respect for the fans. They all do, um, and they really, really want to give them the best show they possibly can,
Yeah.
and the fans see it and they love it, and it's a big love fest. It's great.
So with all that, my question is, are you, when you set up for the day for it, are you using a lot of snapshots? Do you have are you just kind of writing and going with as another
Riding
musician?
and going with. I tried when I first switched to digital consoles. I tried doing snapshots, but they have a list of 300 something songs that they're picking from, and I don't know what they're going to be. And if he calls an audible, I'm sitting here searching through. They're halfway through the song before I find the scene
Yeah.
to switch it to. So on this new record, I do have a couple snapshots for a couple songs, just because there's some really unique things going on in them. But 90% of the show, I'm just on my what I call my rock show scene and just kind of
Okay.
riding faders.
So, um, in terms of different instruments, I
Mhm.
saw that there's a bass that had, what was that bass that had like four, what was it, had
We've got a
like
12 string.
12-string bass,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
was really cool. But like, do you have when they're switching out instruments like that, you're just kind of EQing on the fly with it?
A little bit,
What
yeah. I try see, and I'm also a big proponent of letting the instrument be what it is.
hmm,
You know what I mean? There's a reason why they're playing that certain guitar or that instrument on that song, because they want it to sound a certain way. So I'm not going to try and make them all sound the same every song. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, I just let them. So I'm not really doing a lot of EQ changes
Hmm,
when they change instruments, because again, they're doing it for a reason. Like that 12 string is super clangy and bright, and that's but a bunch of the songs on 10, Jeremy and all that is that 12 string, and he's playing the same instrument that he recorded that record on. So that has a very specific sound,
yeah.
and so I just leave it alone.
Okay, so for sound check and are you doing virtual playback at all? Do you just kind of mix to a
Not if
curve, listen to
so.
some
It depends. If
a
I'm getting a
song?
sound check from them, I won't do any playback. I'll just wait. When I tune the PA, I don't. It's kind of developed a thing over the years. I won't play music. I don't play any tracks
Really? Okay.
because
Pink and tuned to a curve or
yeah, nothing. Just because yeah, pink. I'll get pink up in a curve. I'll talk into a microphone. I'll know. Okay, yep, that's just to hear what the room's kind of doing with the voice. If there's any weird stuff that's pointing out. But really, I don't use a track because that's not what I'm mixing. I want to hear what I'm going to mix.
yeah.
Playback, and I will argue this to the day I die, but there's something, it sounds different when you play back tracks versus when they're playing on stage. It's very, very close, but there is something different. I don't know
Side fills.
what it is. Yeah, well, yeah, we've got a hell of a lot of
You
side
do.
fills. So I try not to rely on that. So like festivals where we line check in the morning or whatever, I will do playback, but it's usually just like kick, snare, bass, just to get the feel of that PA. I'll throw in some guitars just to make sure I'm doing it, whatever. But that's really it. Um, I have faith, especially with a PA like K1 that I have a lot of experience on. I know what it's going to do, so I don't have to worry about it. If I'm on a different PA, um, they're all pretty darn good
Yeah.
these days. So it's not like the old days where I've got a Vertec rig powered by God knows what amps, and who knows what the crossover is, and everything's pretty much, all the manufacturers have made their stuff uniform, so kind of what you're getting. If okay, this is a D&B rig, I know what it's going to be. You know what I mean? If this is a whatever. So
I heard this quote the other day, and it was talking about how the $200 speakers today are better than the $2,000 speakers of the 80s and the 70s.
yeah,
The technology has just gotten
so much
so
better.
much better.
Yeah, it's insane. Oh yeah, and I mean it's crazy how good an arena show can sound now in any seat, especially nosebleeds and especially far away and stuff like that. Because the old points, they didn't throw, but 120 feet. You know what I mean? It
I was
wasn't.
talking with Pooch. He was like, back then it was like, do we hear the vocals? Yeah, we
No,
do.
no,
Let's
seriously,
go.
yeah. Yeah, totally. And but again, venues weren't this tall
Yeah.
back then. Uh,
So here's my question. Do you feel like with so many advancements, are we just kind of reaching for that last 1%, or do you think there's still some really big advancements that we can have in technology in terms of audio
I
and
mean,
concerts? Because
at a
we're
point, you're hitting a wall with you know physics of what a conducer can do. Um, so I think we're pretty close. They're always making things better. They're always, everything that comes out. They're doing things now with more like, like GSL and all that with the phase and making it so you're not hearing a lot backstage or behind the PA. Oh God, we can cut all that. I don't know what I'm saying. I think we're close. I'm not sure what else we can
Yeah,
do.
that's been one of my questions before. Like, what do you think is the
I don't
future of it? And it's like so
again
tough.
because it's even if the future is one giant box that just does everything is that's great, but what is
Well, it kind of gets into me. Sorry to take this on a tangent, but it's like I feel like almost gone are the days of the audio files because if you look at it, we're going down to just sound bars now and
yeah
AirPods.
yeah
And most people, even the kids, they don't care how it sounds. They just want to share it on social media.
yeah
So I'm wondering if we've reached a point of kind of diminishing
yeah
returns
that's good, kind of a good point. I mean
with it. So another question I have for you is what was one piece of equipment throughout your years that really revolutionized your way of thinking about sounds?
smart really uh helped getting PAs phase aligned and seeing what you're doing in real time is was really helpful and really transformative for me in my younger years. Um, but again, it is a tool. It is not something that you should rely 100% on.
Yeah.
Use your ears as the final end all. But it was a great tool to kind of help going.
Yeah.
Um,
For those of you who don't know, Smart is
oh
owned by a company called Rational Acoustics, and Smart is a real-time analyzer and a fantastic tool. Go to their website, check them out. Everything from apps
yeah,
to they can buy all of your microphones and
yep,
your real-time stuff on there. Please go to that website, check them out. Something for everything from your small club stuff to even touring level. You don't have to get the massive stuff, but like
right.
that's so key, especially being able to like visualize what is going on
hmm
in the room. Let me ask you this: do you feel like there's a point to where um, the tools that we have kind of go a little bit too far,
Oh
and you
yeah,
need to
if
like remember to
oh
mix
100%,
with your ears and not your eyes. So
hundred
fantastic,
percent,
it's a tool, but
100%.
you're so
Yeah,
used to seeing that dip or that curve somewhere that
yeah. Because a lot of times I'll even look at and seeing what's going on smart, and it's like, well, I don't hear that. I'm not, so I'm not going to trust it.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's and maybe right or wrong, I don't know, but yeah, you have to judge your ear. You know what I mean? That's the difference between I think a great engineer and a good engineer. A good engineer you can get by just staring at the computer and doing all that. You can get a good mix up, but the really good ones have just a great ear, you know, and it's just something that you can develop over years, and there's the natural talent to it too. It's just so yeah.
What is one cool trick you've learned recently?
Oh gosh, I don't really do any tricks. I'm not that smart. Um, I'm pretty straight ahead mixer. I don't do a lot of like fancy stuff. There's not like I'm not there's no comping drums. I don't, there's none of that. Like it's just all kind of organic go.
Yeah,
I've never been, you know,
yeah,
I just haven't been that guy. I've gotten great results without having to use a lot of like studio tricks. Um, I think because I have a lot of problems with even like doing things, especially with plugins, like a phasing is a I can never like, okay, this doesn't sound good. Doesn't sound like it did when it was just by itself. Kick, snare, big, go. Um, but again, a lot of that is with how records sound these days. Everything is, drum comp and this and everything squished and blended together and stuff like that. So that's what people are used to hearing, but I didn't grow up listening to that. My ear is a little bit different as far as what I'm trying to do, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's I don't
no, you're
I don't
great.
really have any tricks.
um what is the last concert you went to that you weren't working at?
Oh God, The Cure. Yeah, I'm a big, huge, giant, nerdy '80s goth kid. Fucking love The Cure. And that was a great show. And again, I was sitting over there on the side, and it sounded great. I was like, good job. It was K1 pointing right at me. It was wonderful. Um, but yeah, that was the last show that I went to. I can't even remember the last show I paid. Last show I paid to see was probably Rush back in 2011, maybe something like that. I can't remember.
Wow.
Um, but but yeah, I don't go to a lot of shows, but I still like to. There's bands that I really genuinely enjoy that I will always go see.
Was there a band that you saw and loved sonically? It's been one of your favorite ones that you've heard.
There's a lot. Remember as a kid, I saw Peter Gabriel at the WOMAD tour. I don't remember what year that was, 91, 90 maybe? I can't remember. But that was the first time where I was just like, oh, this sounds really good. And like started to take apart because I was already like, kind of started mixing a little bit. And I was in studio recording class, but I remember listening to that show going, okay, this sounds fucking amazing. Like there was a thing with the vocal and there was all this low end to it, but it wasn't muddy and it was just like, okay, oh, how can I do that? That sort of got me thinking. I don't remember who was mixing that tour, but I remember it was on a 3K. He had a pair of 3Ks out front. But but yeah, recently, I mean, um, there's a lot of great. Robert Collins, who's one of my heroes. Uh, he mixed Clapton forever and all of that. He recently did a thing with the Who. We did at Wembley where he had the London Philharmonic and they were doing Tommy, and he had a whole another SD7 with the symphony on it, but it was the most loudest rock symphony thing I've ever heard. There was no hollowness to anything. It was like 102 in a stadium, hitting you in the face with the band mixed in perfectly. It was glorious. And I remember just sitting there behind him, just like, fuck you, fuck. Like, oh, it sounded so fucking good. And there's a few, like MC mixing Muse, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, Jim Warren mixing Radiohead, back in the early 2000s and stuff like that. Some of those shows were just like unbelievable. So yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, Greg Price mixing Ozzy, like just painfully loud, but so good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, he is the best loud, good mixer, I think, out there for sure. A bit like an old mentor of mine, a guy named JD Brill. He mixed the Eagles forever, and those shows were just like like a sonic blanket you could wrap yourself in. The harmonies and all that kind of stuff. It was brilliant. So I had a lot of good experiences, like listening to things and picking it out. Like, okay, this sounds amazing. What is he doing? Okay, good. Okay, I'm gonna pick up on that and stuff. So yeah.
If you guys want to support this channel, you guys can go down below. You can go to my website, thisisdelcruz.com. There's got a Patreon. We've got a YouTube membership. Please go there to subscribe. We're going to have a bunch of extra stuff that we'll do with him, some behind the scenes stuff. So please go there to support. You can get a t-shirt, failed musician t-shirt if you want to. So please go down there to support. If you go to the website, you'll see a interview section. You can go find by band and go see him. So thank you. Looking back at your career, is there a point that is the highlight, or is there one that you walked into and you're like, oh wow, I can't believe I am here right now?
Yeah, there's a few. Kevin, who mixes Green Day, and I did a club tour together in '93, I think. And so we became friends, and I've sort of kept in touch with him over the years. Well, we did a show at RFK Stadium where Green Day was headlining and Incubus was opening up for him. And we were both standing there, and we were just like, this is pretty cool. Like we started, we were playing clubs with like, a PV Mark III console or, Yamaha 2404 or whatever. And here we were mixing in a stadium, both of us. It was a really, really cool moment. That's one of my coolest moments. The first South American stadium tour I did with these guys, that was a really fun big moment where it's just 60,000 screaming people losing their minds. The crowds down there are just the best. It's so much fun touring South America because they're so passionate about music. And so yeah, that was pretty fun.
That's cool.
Yeah, but the first arena run we did with Incubus, where it was like our production, and that was another great moment. Yeah, it's kind
That's
of fun.
cool.
And I try and not take anything for granted, and I try and revel in all these moments. I love what I do, and I started as a 19-year-old kid. Okay, I want to be mixing stadiums. That's what I want to do, and luckily I was able to do it. And I never take that for granted. I'm always so grateful that I've been lucky enough to be able to do this.
Okay, on the flip side of that, what is one of the mistakes you've made, or say your biggest mistake you've made, and what did you learn from that mistake, or have you ever made a mistake?
Oh God, I make mistakes every day. I make tiny little mistakes every day. The best thing is not let your mistakes ruin you, or don't dwell on them. You kind of have to just move on and go. But God, mistakes. So many. I've told you this last night. Whatever. Back in the days of analog, when you had your solo in place, your SIP button on the XL4, it happened. I would like to say it only happened once, but it didn't. It's happened probably 2 or 3 times. Where I'm in the middle of a show and I go to solo like a bass or something like that, and completely wipe out everything else, and it's just bass coming out of the PA. And I remember, especially one time that happened, my systems guy was behind me, and he literally slammed me in the back of the head, and my headphones fall off. I was like, oh, fuck. And again, I'd like to say that only happened once in my life, but it's probably happened 2 or 3 times back in those days that I did that. Okay, this is funny. I had a weird few months where, so Lake, I'm not using it now, but um, there's a, um, there's like a home button where you go back to, like, you're in your little thing and you go back. And in my brain, I can't remember why, but I would push the mute thinking I was going home. And I muted the entire PA and unmuted it. And I like, again, like I said, it only happened once. It probably happened 2 or 3 times. And I cannot explain to you to this day what my brain was thinking. I was working for Rat Sound at Coachella once, and they had the Newton sort of system, feeding everything or whatever, and I didn't really know it. I was kind of learning it. I was poking around in it, and I don't remember who was on stage at the time. I can't remember, but I muted the PA at Coachella for like a split second and unmuted it. It's okay. I'm done with it. I'm gonna go over here now. So yeah, I have fucked up, but luckily, nothing the end of the world. And the other thing too is when you mess up, you can't try and blame somebody else. I know a lot of guys who will fuck things up and then try and make it about something else. You
Yeah.
have to, like, yeah, that was me. I fucked that up,
Yeah.
and accept the consequences and move on.
Okay, that leads me to my next question. From somebody who has been with bands and had a super long tenure with them and had a long, successful
Hmm.
career, what is your advice to younger engineers to be able to still maintain that success and that longevity, and especially with the rise of social media and being your brand? But there's something very special about what you've done, especially maintaining a good reputation, maintaining your brand, to be able to work with not just an artist, but an artist for a long period of time, which is, uh, I guess, arguably a little bit rarer nowadays because there's a lot of people who kind of bounce
Sure,
around with
yeah.
it. So, what's your advice to the either
It's
up and comers or the ones that are want to be in your position?
it's funny you say, like, so the having a brand is such a relatively new thing. Like, I don't even think of that. I don't I don't even think of me having a brand. Basically, what you have to do is always keep learning. Never assume you know everything. I learn stuff every single day, and use that in your job. Try not to get an ego. Don't think that you're better than the band. Don't think you know more than the band. Um, Always have respect for what they're trying to do on stage, and just try and reproduce that. Don't make it about yourself. Be able to take criticism, constructive criticism, or even unconstructive criticism, because what we do is very, very subjective, and everybody has an opinion, and everyone hears things differently. They just do. Everyone's an individual, so you have to be able to take criticism and sort of know, okay, is that valid? You have to be able to look at yourself and go, is that valid, or is that just that guy's hearing something different than I hear? You know what I mean? But mostly having respect for yourself and having respect for people around you, your teammates, people you work with. All of those things contribute to bands wanting you around for a long time, and people wanting you around. Yeah, that's a huge thing. It's just having respect for the people you work with.
Okay. Touring is quite the lifestyle, and it can almost be related to like deployment in the
Oh
military,
yeah, very much
being
so.
away and coming back. What's your advice to be able to keep grounded and maintain healthy relationships, um, be it with family or be it with spouses or children? Because it's a tough balance. And what have you learned, and how do you
It's a
apply
huge,
that
it's a
now?
huge, yeah, it's a huge deal. I'm divorced. Most people in this industry who tour for a very long time are divorced. It takes a very special partner to be able to stay at home and deal with all of that by themselves, with me or whoever gone. Um, so if you want to do this for a long time, before you get into a relationship with a person, make sure that they are the type of person who can deal with that. You know what I mean?
And think people say they can deal with it, but when it comes down to it,
No, you
it's
really, and again, you don't know until
yeah.
you're doing it. And so it's very hard, but also realizing and having empathy for that person at home and, you know, maintaining contact, call, 6 times a day. Don't get mad when they call 6 times a day. Um, Try and share as much of your life out here with them as you can. Um, Try and maintain contact. Try and get them to come out here as often as is possible. Um, but all of those little things are incredibly important. And again, when you come home, the key thing is you're coming home into their world.
Mm-hmm.
They have something that's built up that you are just sort of a visitor in, and you have to respect that. And you cannot make it all about yourself uh, when you're home. And I think those things um, are important to sort of maintaining this. And and keeping that kind of contact is good for your mental health as well, because um, it's very lonely out here. I've been guilty of it too. You can just isolate. You can just spend all your time in a hotel room, or you start going crazy, and then you want to just go out and then start drinking all the time to make it better, and that can be a bad thing. But if you have a grounded home life or something that you can go to and kind of go back, I think that's important and that's helpful. But but yeah, this lifestyle is not for everyone, um, and trying to maintain a positive mental attitude is very important. And knowing when you don't have one is
Mm.
important. Knowing or seeing someone else who's isolating or something like that, and going, hey, what are you doing? Let's go hang out. You know what I mean? Just keeping in track of each other is incredibly important out here, I feel. Um, but it is hard. It's a hard thing to maintain a relationship with friends and family back home. I remember that because I mean, I've had a few friends for good 20 30 years, whatever, but like I would come home and I would be like a stranger because they've all had these experiences that I've missed because I was gone for 3 months. um, and so I'm not, and these were just friendships, you know what I mean, with when you have a wife or a girlfriend at home, whatever, it's just amplified that much more. um, so it's a tough balance. I mean, I love what I do. I can't imagine doing anything else. I still love traveling. um, but it comes with a price, and you have to be able to pay that price and be okay with it to succeed at this. I think it's worth it. At the end of the day, I don't. Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard
Yeah.
it's a hard thing
Yeah.
because I've lost a lot um, by doing this. But again, and God, the pandemic. We can talk for hours about that. How horrible that was on everybody. But it was you know incredibly hard in that it showed me like I can't do anything else. I've been doing this since I was 18 years old. I don't have any real world skills. And this is definitely not the real world. We're basically living this Peter Pan Carney lifestyle. Like what we try and tell people, what we try and tell, civilians, I call them, speaking of the military analogy, civilians, what we do, they just don't understand it. A lot of people just think we're partying all the time or whatever, but this can be a grinding job. um, and maintaining mental well-being is hard, and you have to work on it, and you have to pay attention to yourself, and you have to pay attention to others and help them uh, if you can.
I think the other question I get asked a lot is, how do I get into touring? Because it's tough. Because, you know, people want to hire people who've been on tour, but how do you get on tour without being on tour? So I get a lot of questions with that, and one of the things I've really tried to do, especially with this channel, is give a real unfiltered look into what touring is really like. And I think people have a misconception that they come to a concert and see the awesome portion of it, and
Yeah,
it's yeah, this life, but really it's that's the smallest bit
yeah,
of your day, and the rest of it is filled with not that.
yeah.
Um, so my question to you is, what do you feel like is the biggest misconception when it comes to audio or touring?
Um, that it's a big party, that we all hang out with the band. There'll be, you know, days where I won't even speak to any of the band guys just because it doesn't, our worlds don't collide, and the smaller when you're on a club tour or whatever, that's different. You're hanging out with them and stuff like that. But the party aspect of it, yeah, it's you can do that, but you're not going to get very far, uh, and you're not going to have
Longevity.
longevity at all. But it is long hours and it's work. It is physical labor, especially when you're starting out because you're doing the jobs that I don't want to do. I don't want to pull feeder. I've already pulled feeder. You know what I mean? So it is, it is, and I did all those things. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? I pulled feeder in the mud when it's pouring rain, freezing cold, you know, for working, 16 hours a day. Uh, that's the reality of it, and you have to. This is the other thing too. You have to be able to let people yell at you
hmm,
because a lot of the older guys, this is still a very much, like you said, a military sort of thing, and there's not a lot of room to suffer fools
hmm,
in this because things have to happen in a certain order on time or the show doesn't happen. And so a lot of the older guys are just used to yelling at you.
that's true.
And you can't let things like that bother you. You just have, especially as a younger, you just got to keep your head down and do your job and do not take anything personal
That's tough.
because they don't, it's not really a personal thing. They're just trying to get the job done and that's how they know how to do it. Is it right? No, of course not. But it 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 is what it is and it's getting better because a lot of the, this it's the respect for everyone has gotten better. But yeah, if in the heat of battle, if someone's yelling at you because you're messing up, just take it and
Yeah.
learn from it, and then don't mess up.
What do you think is the biggest misconception for a Pearl Jam live show?
Oh God. That I talk to Ed every day right after the show, and I can give him your note, card, wishes, whatever. They're gone. I don't see them.
Yeah,
They're out of the building
yeah.
5 minutes after the show's done. Um, yeah. So yeah, that's the one. I mean, yeah, I love all of them to death. They're all wonderful, wonderful human beings. But I don't hang out with them.
Yeah.
You know, uh, it's just yeah,
Okay, so you told me yesterday that one of the biggest things that people want, and this is not just this
right.
area, but it's a set list.
Oh God, yeah.
Um, what do you, well, to the fans, what is the best way you think for them to be able to ask for a set list that's saying, hey, 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 hey?
Yeah. So I don't have them. I started
So stop asking him.
start I started just taking a picture of it and I follow that way. Um, so I don't have one to give, and that it leaves me of the responsibility of it. But I mean, really, I mean, at the end of the day, I know it's you want to take something from the show that's personal. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I'm
not the guy.
not the guy to do that. You got to be up on stage. I know they give him out up there. But out here we try and I just trying to do my job, and then I want to just go away. I don't want people to know who I am. I don't want,
Cancel show.
yeah. I don't want exactly. I'm screwing up, aren't I? But I want people to come to enjoy the show,
Yeah.
watch the band, and then just kind of take that with them. I don't, everybody wants their own personal thing, and everybody feels, not everybody, but a lot of people feel entitled, and they feel like they're owed something more than just the performance, and that tends to bother me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have a set list.
What is your favorite song to mix? I don't say this tour, but like in general with Pearl Jam.
Oh God, there's a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot. A lot of the songs on the first record, once. They cover a. This is where my brain stops working. They cover a Mother Love Bone song called Chloe Dancer that I love mixing. It's just so much fun. That's good. But there's a lot of. There's a song they barely do anymore. It's called You Are. That's another super fun song to mix. Off the new record, Dark Matter is really fun song to mix. It's just this big, full, kind of in your face kind of thing. There's a lot. I could go on and on and on. There's a lot of really great songs that I really enjoy mixing this band. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How are we at for time? Okay. So I'm gonna do a shift to maybe walking through your gear
sure,
and
yeah.
that. So if you want to see this, go to Patreon or YouTube, and you can kind of see this. But we're gonna, if people want to follow you and follow your career, where can they follow you at?
Oh God, we'll have to come back to that. Have to come back to this Instagram account, but I don't know what it is.
It's Greg Nelson 69.
There you go.
I think. Either way, it'll be down below for you to hit him up.
I'm
We'll
terrible.
get him caught up. We'll
I'm
get you taken
terrible.
care of.
I know.
So you're on Instagram. You're
on Facebook.
On Facebook. Craigslist. MySpace.
I still have a MySpace account somewhere. I'm sure. I don't know where it is, but it's out there.
It's lost in the abyss.
If you can find it. I did have a MySpace. Oh yeah, I'm old.
Cool. So we'll shift into that.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks.